Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology on YouTube and on podcast everywhere. And I am going to be looking at the week ahead from December the 7th through to the 13th, not from the 8th. So I'm recording this on December the 3rd, the day before the Gemini full moon that is square the nodes. I talked about that on a full moon video podcast, and I also talked about it on last week's week ahead, the one I'm recording this in. But anyway, and it's sitting, the moon is at 13 degrees. My moon's at 12 degrees Gemini. My moon opposes Jupiter, which is at 14 degrees Sag. And this mutable ground cross is just frying my brain and making all kinds of weird things happen, but it's kind of wonderful as well. But if I feel a bit hyper and scattered under this full moon, that's why. Jupiter expands everything as well. So it's like, oh. Anyway, I'm going to do the usual format for the forecast. I'm pulling the cards. I'll show you them in a moment. Then I will go through day by day. We'll look at the major aspects and the patterns and where we're at in the general big scheme of things and cycles. And then at the end, we'll do a full reading of the cards. But before I do, I just want to say that this week ends on Saturday, the 13th of December, which is the day of my solar return. My birthday's on the 14th December, but it's also the day I do a free webinar for Kepler College. I put the link below. Kepler College, I'm really honoured to be asked to do a webinar on Ceres about my book and about Ceres in general, and to give more information about Ceres as she speaking to me. But it's free to register. If you register, they'll send you the recording. They also, I think, upload it then afterwards onto Kepler College on YouTube. So check it out. You don't have to be there live, but it would be wonderful to see some of you there on the webinar. So to support me as well. But it's also a busy time of year. But I just felt like, having that date open up, December the 13th, doing it on my solar return, I was like, this is a chef's kiss. Anyway, so, it's at 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. my time. The cards I pulled for the week. I'm afraid it's not going to be a very easy week. We'll be under the waning moon. We'll look at the astrology in a second. We'll go through day by day. And we'll be heading towards an absolute whopper of a Sagittarius new moon that is coming up on December the 19th. And it's kind of intense. Everything's crazy. But the cards, I'll just show you the cards first of all. And we'll do the free reading at the full reading at the end again. 3 of Cups. These are all from the Red Threads Tarot again. I think we've had that one recently, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. Then we get to we get the 9 of Blades. Okay, so don't despair. I actually pulled it reversed, and reversed is a little bit better for the blades or swords. 5 of Blades too. I also pulled that reversed, so we'll look at both. And we pulled this one again. We keep getting this card. A few times I've had this. She of the Invisible Ally from the Witch Oracle deck by Angie Sullins. All right. Ooh, and it's another big week. I think I'll get a little bit tired of saying that, but we are in this time where everything is kind of ending, and we're in this kind of tunnel of change in so many ways. So I'm just getting my pointers up so I can do some pointing. Here we start the week on December the 7th, Sunday. I always set the time for the beginning of Sunday on the day. So we can see that the nodes are still at 13, Virgo and Pisces. Now, this is 12 days before the Sagittarius new moon, and I'll talk more about that on other videos. But I've been investigating interstellar object or comet 3I Atlas, which is got comet-like attributes, but is not like a normal comet that's in our solar system. Anyway, the reason I mention it now is that Atlas 3I, third eye, by the way, is going to be closest to Earth on December the 19th, on the Sagittarius new moon. But I have not confirmed this yet, but the astrological position of 3I Atlas then will be on this south node. So, there's a lot going on there astrologically. So the nodes, so that's just to mention that that's where 3I Atlas is coming in. Also, as we start the week, let me just check one thing. We do have the moon out of bounds. We start the week with the moon out of bounds in Cancer. And that reminds me to mention one thing that I did not mention for the current week we're in as I record this. On November the 27th, which was Thanksgiving here in the USA, Mars moved out of bounds. Now, Mars will be out of bounds until January the 4th and will be at maximum out of bounds on the 16th and 17th of December, just before that new moon. Oh my goodness. But also, then at the end of the year, Venus will go out of bounds December 21st to January the 3rd, and Mercury will go out of bounds December the 28th to January the 15th. So for a few days there, January the 28th to January the 3rd, all three personal planets will be out of bounds. And I haven't checked the dates yet, but the moon goes out of bounds twice a month, and we're at lunar maximum. The moon goes out of bounds in Cancer and Capricorn. So I'll talk more about this then. But this is adding to this intense change energy and feeling like things are beyond the pale right now. Out of bounds energy is really the kind of eccentric energy acting out of the norm. So I did forget to mention it last week, but as we start the week, Mars is actually at 24 degrees south in Sagittarius, south of the ecliptic. I wonder if this, I'm actually going to be interviewing Rosie Finn on my podcast in January about her book, Persephone's Revolution, and a couple of other things. But she, in her book, said that Pluto is going out of bounds and going out of bounds south. It's going out of bounds for a couple of months every year from this year till 2032. But she said periods where Pluto is out of bounds to the south have been times of people rising up. Now, I wonder if anybody's tracked the north and south declination of other planets going out of bounds. I haven't, but it's just kind of a thought, really. I'm not saying I'm really right. Okay. Anyway, so Pluto is out of bounds. 23 degrees 27 is where planet goes out of bounds. If it goes beyond that, north or south, it's out of bounds. Mars is now at 24 degrees. But we also start the week with the moon in its own sign, out of bounds. As I said, the moon goes out of bounds twice a month, usually in Cancer and Capricorn, but also late degrees of Gemini and early Leo, or also late degrees of Sagittarius and early Aquarius. And we start the week with the moon out of bounds at 26 degrees 31 minutes north. That's really out of bounds. And I think we're also at lunar maximum, which happens every 19 years. And we're at solar maximum this year. Lunar maximum, it's a 19-year cycle. And we have lunar minimum at the halfway point. So this is a heightened year already. I've talked about it a lot, but we start this week with the moon out of bounds and with Mercury out of bounds. Okay, back to the chart and some other things I want to point out. So Jupiter is at 24 degrees Cancer retrograde, moving away from Saturn. Saturn is moving forward and now at 25 degrees 13. But these two stationed retrograde and direct within a very short time space at exactly the same degree a minute, 25 degrees 09 minutes of Cancer and Pisces, water signs. And these two have been part of this huge water grand trine that Mars activated, the Sun activated, Venus activated. Well, guess what? Now Mercury's in the mix. And the moon. Okay. And Black Moon Lilith is oscillating back and forth between Scorpio and Sagittarius. But also I use what's called the true calculation or osculating calculation of Black Moon Lilith, but the the average calculation is at about the same point at the moment as well. So that's making Black Moon Lilith another wild card energy and really kind of potent as well right now. So all that to say, we begin this week with the last blast of this massive water grand trine that in essence really is also a kite to Uranus, the big change maker. Uranus is moving retrograde, will go back to 27 degrees of Taurus and then station direct for the last time in Taurus. But all of these are speaking to each other at these last 5 degrees of these signs. And water grand trines tend to be very purging and cleansing, but also very emotional. Okay, and they're in Earth. Well, this is a water sign, but this is an Earth sign, Taurus. So it feels like everything's shifting down here on Earth, within us and without. I've heard so many people say they are really changing. A couple of other things to mention is that Venus is now well under the beams of the sun. She will not appear till February the 17th when in Pisces. So when she's conjunct the North Node on a whopping new moon. And that might be the date I'll be doing my series workshop. I haven't decided fully on that yet. So that's where we're at with everything. Big events this week are that Neptune will station direct. So Neptune starts the week at its station point, has not left that 29 degree mark, the last degree of the zodiac. And Neptune will station direct for the last time in Pisces as well. And since Neptune has a 165-year orbit, we're never going to have Neptune in Pisces again, and we're never going to have Neptune at the very last degree of the zodiac before these two meet at 0 Aries. So these are such huge times, guys. So I will break it down to more mundane for you day by day, but just know that, wow, this is just, I kind of feel like it's both cleansing and purging much of what needs to be purged and cleansed, but is also kind of making everything that's happening out in the world very tide-turny and swirly and like a big storm or a hurricane or a twister, or or a twister in a hurricane. And somebody described it like being in a spin cycle of a washing machine, like being thrown around. It's crazy times. Okay, so we start the week. Neptune is being aspected by Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith at the moment is really kind of aspecting a lot of energies. Now I see Black Moon Lilith as that wild elemental part of ourselves that has been shamed. Black Moon Lilith has a lot to do with shame, where we've been shamed, where we feel shame, where we've been made wrong, any part of us really, but particularly kind of the divine feminine energy has been shamed. And I think women are more prone to it than others, to at least being shamed for what they're wearing, do all the things they do. But I definitely think all of us feel shame, and we all have Black Moon Lilith in us somewhere. So there's a lot of this coming up to be cleansed and purged this week, is what I'm going to say. But I'm not going to mention every Black Moon Lilith aspect, because but she's another aspect of the moon. She is that oscillating point of the moon's apogee, and she's just kind of a bit of a wild, all over the place, kind of like, you have hurt me kind of energy. So just kind of keep an eye on her, okay, as we go through the week. And then I'll just go through the moon aspects as normal on the 7th. By the way, the 7th is my husband's birthday, so say happy birthday to Charles. And then the moon will trine Nessus, revealer of abuses of power. Saying the buck stops here, we've had it. Pull out those toxins, get rid of them. More water, grand trine energy, really. So, and then Black Moon Lilith opposes Uranus. As again, I'm not going to aspect them all, but then the moon really starts to join the party, gets to 22 degrees of Cancer, very out of bounds still, and squares Chiron, and conjuncts Jupiter, and then we'll square Eris, the table turner. So here's the kind of medicine, the wound and the medicine, the bit of the medicine man, really. And this is bringing up all this emotion about how we're seeing these wounds now, and how we can be a part of the healing from the inside out, okay? And then the moon will trine Saturn, so really in the mix of this water grand trine. And the moon will trine Mercury then. So that grand trine is really potent. The first 2-3 days of this next week, okay, is its last blast. Then the moon will come up and will sextile Uranus, and then will drop into Leo for a couple of days. So we'll look more at that. But now let me look at the major aspects for the day. And I'm going to actually move the chart to these so you can see the aspects. The lines get thicker, which means the aspects are stronger. And you can just see how potent this water grand trine that's been going on and kind of building in strength and weakening for ages has been very like big floods of emotions and purging and cleansing. But it's also been bringing a lot of kind of watery events and storms and things as well. So the 11:57 a.m. on Sunday, Mercury will get to 25 degrees. We'll have trined, so you can see it will exactly trine Saturn. And that really is pretty much the end of this water grand trine. But of course, Mercury, we won't really feel it ending until Mercury leaves Scorpio, because Mercury will then trine Neptune. So you can see how powerful this is, and you can see that Mercury is coming up to join Black Moon Lilith and then oppose Uranus. So again, big shifts, big change, but big cleansing and purging, and some of it very, very radical. And the moon, of course, has really joined the party. The moon's out of bounds, adding to the strength of this. But I do want to mention that Mars is also at 24 degrees on this, and making a quincunx to Jupiter and the moon, and also making a trine to Eris. So this 24-25 degree mark is potent as heck. If you have anything in your chart around those degrees, you will feel like you're in that spin cycle in the washing machine. And try and stay in your center. One other big aspect for the day is that Venus will get to 15 Sagittarius and will make a lovely supportive aspect to Wise Owl Pallas Athena, fire and air, very creative. So in the mix of this swirl of energy, you may be getting some real kind of ideas and plans and pulling pieces together to move forward. Okay. And then the moon will move into the sign of Leo. One other slight aspect to... no, that's not it. I realise I forgot to add one of my extra points that I love. In fact, a couple. So I did want to add Hecate, Haumea, and Asteroid Lilith, because they've been playing a big part in all of this. So have a few other things, but you know, I think I had enough bits already. So, Sedna over here. Asteroid Lilith, who I call Talk to the Hand Lilith, has just moved into the sign of Pisces, joining this Pisces party here. And she is in that sign of Pisces, which is surrender, trust, let go, have faith, but also clouds parting. And will square Sedna, which is our spiritual destiny through crisis, this big crossroads energy, just adding to this immense time we're in, really. All right. Okay, so I want to move us on to December the 8th. This might be quite a long one because, we're just in such times, you know. And I do want you to see the degrees and the patterns. So on to Monday, December the 8th. The water grand trine is still strong, but Mercury is moving away from Jupiter because Jupiter's retrograde. Mercury is now building up speed, is moving fast. Mercury, after Mercury stations direct, it starts to move really fast, very quickly. So Mercury is going to break up that. The Mercury is a messenger. The information coming through, the news as well, is going to break away from this water grand trine, especially as it moves away from Jupiter. But you can see it's also moving away from Saturn, not Neptune yet. It's moving towards that aspect with Neptune, but that's okay. So we start the week. So December the 8th. That's weird. Okay, December the 8th. The moon is now in Leo. The moon will oppose Pluto. Let's go through all those moon aspects. We'll try in Ceres, which is now moving also. Still slow, but has moved almost a degree since she's stationed direct. The moon will also square off to Haumea here, which is regeneration, rebirth. Remember, Pluto and Haumea are in this ongoing decade-long square. And so what else will the moon do? The moon will then trine Venus in Sagittarius, so we get some real kind of fiery energy coming in, of burn it all off and creation. And then the moon, that's it for the moon aspects. So let's go through the bigger aspects for the day. Mars, remember, Mars is out of bounds. Next week, I think, you know, we're going to feel like we're being shaken, rattled, and rolled in all kinds of ways. But also we are wanting to do some shaking and rattling and rolling. So Mars out of bounds, not as far out of bounds as it would be until the 16th and 17th. The moon back in bounds, by the way, but for now. Mars will come up and trine Table Turner Eris and fire and saying, let's shake things up, let's change things, or things will be shaken up, or tables will be turned in a lot of ways. And then Black Moon Lilith gets some more aspects, but I'm not going to go through all of those, or I'll be here all day. And I'm not going to even get this chart right for this one, but Hecate, which is the way shower, will pretty much at the same time trine Chiron. So she is the triple moon goddess. So here we have will, drive, action, the so-called god of war, but also the guardian. He is also a protector and a guardian, teaming up with Hecate to trine these to really shake things up and say, how can we be the medicine? How can we heal this gaping wound that's opened up? And then later that day as well, on the 8th, Mars, again, out of bounds, will square Saturn. So that's driving us forward. Saturn is still going slow, so still pushing the tides of change in Pisces, ready to move out of the last sign of the zodiac forever. These are both the signs of faith, belief, truth, understanding, and higher love as well, an experience of the divine. I know many people that feel like they're having somewhat of an awakening spiritually, or an expansion spiritually, let's say. Many people in many ways. The last aspect on the 8th is Ceres over here is going to square off to Hygeia, who is preventative holistic health in the sign of Cancer, birth, the family, also our inner birth from the inside out. Ceres, our needs met and unmet, what feeds us. Do your self-care. Find those self-care practices. If you haven't done it yet, really start creating a list of things that you prioritize as self-care. All right, I know it's hard, but once I decided to do that, put my self-care first, my whole life changed. It's amazing to me. Okay, so I'm just going to move it forward a day. I'm not going to get the exact, because we start the day with the moon in Leo still, and the moon comes up and opposes wise owl Pallas Athena, that has still just been aspected by the sun. They're still in orb. And this is the moon and the sun looking at Pallas Athena in the sign of Aquarius. She's very happy in the sign of Aquarius because Aquarius is about patterns. Aquarius is about the future, hopes, wishes, desires, plans, long-term plans. It's about weaving. It's about weaving spirit and matter together, in my opinion. If you think Aquarius is the water bearer, it's in a way, it's actually pouring spirit down to Earth's source. I don't think there's any accident that there's a scientist who believes that he has now been the first to be able to get an image of dark matter using a special imaging system coming from the galactic center, where we have a new moon coming up. It's just wild times. But this is all new knowledge. This is new ideas, new innovation, new plans. You're like, where did that idea come from? I've never done that before. This is totally me becoming a new person, writing a new story in many ways. So I'm not going to go on any more about that, because you know me, I like to go on a lot. And then the moon will come up and trine the sun. So at the same time, we've got that fire grand trine with the two lights, the sun and moon. But the moon is starting to wane, okay, moving away from that full moon point. So the moon is losing light, letting go, releasing, burning off in fire signs. Burning off, probably the moon is in the sun's own sign too. This is probably saying it's burning off any kind of false ego, if you like, or any ego that is out of control and out of bounds. That we all have to have a healthy ego to survive, because it's our core identity. But where are we letting that feeling of like somehow we are more important run everything? Yet it is all about us as well, but not in control of others. And yeah, ongoing theme. And then the moon will oppose Chariclo, the spinner of grace. So I'm not going to that. She's still there holding space for all this healing. Okay, later on the 9th, I am going to get this aspect exact because we have Chiron. I'm going to get one of them exact anyway. So, sorry, I've flipped the chart a little bit. I will point everything out. In fact, let me do a drawing. So, Chiron and Juno. Juno gets to 22 degrees Sag and trines Chiron, but it makes this fire grand trine here. Okay, so that's really swirling passion, fire, creativity, but also burning off energy. And this is 22 is a master builder number, and 22 Aries is where Chiron will station direct, not this week, but it will do. And Hecate is there as well. Now, Juno is our sacred contracts, and Hecate is the crossroads goddess, triple moon, in the sign of the future, desire, wishes, wandering, expansion of the divine, shooting your arrows forward, saying it's time to change, time to change. Sagittarius is always on the move. I should know. I have a huge Sagittarius stellium. And look at all this Sagittarius energy saying, let's drive this forward. But because it's being activated by things like this is giving it more oomph, more fire, more passion, more drive, more will to do that change. And because also very close are Mars and Eris, this is time. We're like, we've had enough of this. We really want to bring the change in, right? So all of that is speaking together in that big fire grand trine on the 9th. Okay, so finishing on the 9th, let me just clear those lines. The moon will trine Eris, and then will square Mercury, and then will square Uranus. And then early on the next day, the moon will move into, sorry, I'm just going to edit it actually to go AM on the 10th. So we're on to Wednesday now. You can see that the moon finishes up the journey in Leo pretty early in the 10th, all times Eastern. You can adjust for your own time zones. And then we'll move into Virgo, the sign of chop wood, carry water, meaningful work, also worry, concern, but also diligence as well, doing due diligence. I love Virgo energy, but it's also priestess energy, so it's very much service oriented. But right before the moon moves into Virgo, the sun over here will sextile Chariclo, and the sun is now moving towards those two for this amazing Aquarius season that we are going to get. That February 17th Aquarius new moon, honestly, it's a day to watch what starts to emerge from that new moon as we enter this dark time of shifting and changing and waning cycles in many ways. And then the sun will square Nessus over here. Again, buck stops here. We're done with this. We can change, we can change our perceptions, we can change our beliefs, we can change how we feel about ourselves, about the world, and about how we operate in the world. So much going on. And then the Virgo moon will come up and oppose asteroid, talk to the hand Lilith, and square Sedna. Big shift, mutable signs again, big changes. But then the big event of the week really is Neptune. Neptune will station direct at 7:23 a.m. on this day. Now then, I do just quickly want to read you the Sabian symbol and the Chandra symbols for the last degree of the zodiac. We've read them before because we've been here before in many ways, but it's worth So here we go. It's the Great Stone Face. It's from a Nathaniel Hawthorne novel, I believe, or novella, short book. The full symbol, according to Rudyard, was a majestic rock formation resembling a face, is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness, and as he grows up begins to look like it. And this James Burgess interpretation of this symbol is wonderful. It's becoming our own ideal. Instead of ending our journey, we find that we have become the seed of yet another cycle of experimentation. And he goes on to say, do we create God or does God create us? All of these kind of things. But this is really saying what we see when we look is nothing more and nothing less than our expectation. Everything is how we see it and our perception. Okay, so that's a brief rundown of the Sabian symbol. You can actually look it up if you like yourself. All you have to do is Google Sabian symbol 30 Pisces. There's various interpretations. And the Chandra symbol, I love John Sandbacher's symbols. So I'll go to his own site again for this one, for this last degree of the zodiac. Where is it? Okay, now then, the Omega symbol is a dense forest of organ pipes. He says this is transforming, inspired. He said that he always puts a degree angel with each degree as well. So Mumia is spiritual cleansing, endings and rebirth. He says this degree is aware of the vast number of possibilities in life and of the music that can arrive from all the potent interactions with the universe around it. What is to meet this plethora is the inspiration coming from inside, the music that arises from the self and is played out in lifetimes. The more we allow ourselves to flow, the more what is most needed and beneficial for us will come forth from the inside as well as meet us from the outside. And then the Chandra symbol is a large halo in ring formation around the moon. Pisces is the sign of acceptance, and here in its last degree, acceptance reaches completion. So often we think we have accepted something only to find that there are deeper levels to which we may go in this process. It's easy to accept what is beautiful and wonderful, but to accept all the rest, the ugly, the sad, the scary, the terrifying, that is where there is so much more of a tendency to reject or deny. This degree thinks in terms of bringing all emotions into the fold of the great and complete family of emotions. And the magic of it is finding that when all are accepted, the spiritual radiance reaches perfection and we achieve the release for which we have been searching all along. Now, his Pleiadian symbol is a seer on his back and gazing, or on their back, because it could be either gender, and gazing into the sky becomes a channel for cosmic messages. And then the Azoth symbol is an object of great beauty unearthed. This really is about you connecting with the energy of source, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, and finding that beauty unearthed from within and out. Okay, now I really want you to listen to those symbols or go and look them up yourself. And I'm just going to say why, because Neptune is going to be at this degree, and has been at this degree for a while, but because it's this station point, it's this last big turning point of this big Neptune Pisces energy that we've had. But Neptune will not move out of Pisces until January the 26th, as we start to emerge into this new paradigm. Okay, so please pay attention. Okay, so anyway, So I'm just going to go back to December the 10th. So big, it's all week really, Neptune stationing retrograde, especially because of that water grand trine, is the big overarching kind of energy. So, it's also stationing direct at 11, which is 9 plus 2 is 11, 22. So two more master numbers. Oh, this is just, crazy, 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 crazy energy. It's wild. So pay attention to what really shifts within you this week and what you might feel you'll need to let go of. So that's December the 10th. What else do we have finishing it? Oh, there is one more aspect I'd wanted to look at. So there's two big aspects on Wednesday, but you will feel this already, probably, this Neptune station direct at that last degree. This aspect is a more immediate one, and I think is going to bring something crazy. So Mercury will oppose Uranus 2:59 p.m. on Wednesday. So we can see that Neptune has turned direct. So this most of the main planets are direct now. Uranus is still retrograde. But Mercury will oppose Uranus again. Now, in some ways, Mercury and Uranus are both of the mind. Mercury is kind of like our thoughts, communication, messengers from the divine, how we bring it down into us. Whereas Uranus is kind of like the innovative light bulb out there, innovative, out of the box thinking. It's kind of very electric in very many ways. Now then, I'm just going to go back. Mercury first opposed Uranus on October the 29th, and that was at 0 Gemini Sag. Okay. And then on November the 19th, we had Uranus back at 29 degrees of Taurus, and Mercury opposed it for the second time, in square to this, in aspect to Neptune at this time. This is the finishing opposition. And this is looking at each other. These two are really looking at each other in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio, which are all about our resources, but also about power from and power over, paradigms, all about empowerment and embodiment as well. And so we're really taking now a good hard look at what patterns we're breaking, how we're finishing up this journey. It's wild. So I'm going to move on to Thursday, and I am just going to start with the first big aspect of the day, because that happens almost immediately on Thursday as we move into December the 11th. Venus, remember, Venus is in the underworld. She's well under the beams of the sun. She was invisible. She's traveling behind the sun from our perspective. She's kind of in her underworld. She's less accessible to us because she is out there kind of doing her own kind of regeneration and rebirth. It's kind of like a full moon Venus. But look at this. She's at 13 degrees, squaring the nodes, and the moon, right, shortly afterwards, after the exact square, the moon, so that's at 12:42 a.m. Oh, help if I did the moon. Oh, sorry. There we go. So I'm recording this before the Gemini full moon square the nodes that are at 13 degrees on December the 4th. On December the 11th, Venus gets to where the sun was on this full moon, and the moon gets to the south node, opposing the North Node. So Venus is at the bendings, moving towards the North Node, a turning point in faith and belief. But the Moon is also on the last quarter moon coming up to square the Sun, squares Venus, lets go of some real old kind of thoughts, beliefs, worries, concerns, cares, also kind of, but it's also about moving into more meaningful time. What are we taking in from these Sagittarius and Pisces energies, which are all about faith, belief, perceptions, knowledge, understanding, and how are we bringing it down to the Virgo to make meaning from it, and so we can create a more meaningful world? This is kind of insane that just a week after this full moon that's on December the 4th, these happens all at the same degree, which incidentally is 13 degrees, 13, the number of the return, because the 13th hour is both the first. So 1300 hours is one, and yeah, you get the idea. I talked about 13 last week, or on the full moon video, also said to be the number of the divine feminine. It's also a number associated with the Venus cycle, which the Fibonacci sequence represents. You can look that up if you like. The golden mean, all of those things, or come and do my Venus retrograde class next year, because I cannot tell you all of this in a weekly video. Anyway, that's wild. So we start the 11th. Neptune's still, obviously, it's at its station point. I don't think it moves off it until well after this week. And we start with that T-square to the nodes that involves the Moon, Venus, and the nodes. It's just wild, wild, wild. So then on December the 11th, Mercury I'm going to get this exact because I really want you to see how things are flowing. So later that morning on December the 11th, Mercury gets to the very last degree of Scorpio and trines Neptune at its station degree. And if you remember, we started the week with Mercury finishing up that water grand trine. This, I'm going to say, is the real ending of it. At 29 degrees, the anaretic last degree, the liminal degree of changes coming, but Mercury is moving towards Neptune. In fact, all the personal planets are moving towards all these slower planets, Pluto, Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus now. Pretty much apart from Jupiter, most of the planets are moving towards this end. They're moving towards the North Node as well. We are in the end of this huge shift of change in so many ways. Releasing, letting go, beliefs, patterns, all the things. Then the moon opposes Nessus, so we may have a few more little bits to see before we're done. But as the moon opposes Nessus, the moon comes up, and we have the last quarter crisis in consciousness moon of this huge lunar cycle. It's intense, crazy. The last quarter moon is always a crossroads. It's a releasing of things that began on the new moon like 3 weeks before, really, just about. And then we're really in the releasing phase, preparing for the huge Sagittarius new moon. Ooh. Then Mercury, after that, will enter Sagittarius and join this huge Sagittarius party, also on December the 11th. Another big week, I told you. Sign changes, planets changing direction, but so much speaking to each other as well. It's just nuts. But now we have Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Juno, and Hecate all in Sagittarius. And if you remember, Mars is out of bounds, still not maximum till 16th, 17th. But Venus and Mercury are going to be moving out of bounds later as well. They're not yet. But Venus is now only just about 6 degrees, just over 6 degrees from the sun, well under the beams. Asteroids are under the beams too. Everything is like, and Mars is under the beams of the sun again too. All of this is some big spiritual awakening, in my opinion, or belief awakening, or, like understanding that we are our own, we can have our own experience of the divine. Funnily enough, I've just downloaded a book that a friend recommended. So I'm going to tell you what it's called. I haven't read it yet, but she says it's good. So I believe her. She recommended it this morning. It's called Ordinary Mysticism by Mirabai Starr. And I've just read the synopsis. It said about how to live a mystic life, which is really what this is about in many ways. And you do not need intercessories. You do not need priests. You do not need ministers. You do not need pastors. You need nobody to tell you what to do. That doesn't mean you can't have support from them if they are supportive types, but you do not need them an intercessory. You do not need confession. You do not need to have this person speaking God's word to you. You can connect with the divine yourself. So this is huge for that. Huge, 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 especially in the times we're in, and especially really because all of this is squaring all of this in Pisces. Okay. Astounding times. Lastly, the moon over here in Virgo will sextile, come up and sextile Jupiter and square Juno. And that's really just kind of tuning us into this own inner voice and our sacred contract within. So now let's move on to December the 12th. What a time. Oh, no, we do not want that. What am I doing? Edit. I asked you to forgive me if I was a little bit scattered because it's intense. I'm just getting it back to the beginning of the day to move on to the 12th. So you can see that on December the 12th, Friday, Venus Day, she's actually moved off the 13-degree mark. She's now moving more towards that north node and away from the south node, moving towards our potential, or what we're becoming more of, or what we're learning to do more of. But the moon will be in Virgo at the start, and we'll finish squaring all of these energies here with Hecate and Mars. So I'm not going to go over that. That's just the lunar aspects, but it's releasing these old beliefs, these old ideas, to make new meaningful ideas and to make new filing cabinets, if you like. The moon will oppose Saturn as well, and then will square Mars early in the day. Now then, later into this day, the moon will come up and will trine Uranus and then oppose Neptune at that last degree and Neptune still at its station point. I always call the Pisces Virgo axis kind of like this practical mysticism. So maybe that book is needed to be read at the moment. Who knows? Anyway, the moon will then move into the sign of Libra and will aspect Mercury, and will but then Mercury, as the moon aspects it, will oppose Sedna, spiritual destiny through crisis. And these are important to kind of notice what comes through, because when Uranus moves back into Gemini, it will meet Sedna. Remember, Sedna has this 11,406-year orbit and is a big part of this major paradigm shift that we are going through. The moon will then trine Pluto and square Hygeia over here, and will oppose Ceres. So really later in the 12th is a bit of a quiet day, but we're in that waning moon. We're letting go of things. Everything it aspects will be another reminder of what we're letting go of. So on to the last day of the week, December the 13th, the day of my presentation for Kepler, also the day of my solar return. When the sun gets to 21 degrees 39 minutes Sag, that's the degree and minute I was born at. So what a solar return I've got. Oh my God. I can show you the chart if you like. Would you like to see it? Maybe we have a quick look at the end. I'll do it after the cards, so anybody that wants to see my solar return chart can have a look. Okay, it's so wild. So anyway, the moon is in Libra. The moon will square Pholus, not mentioned Pholus much, but that's the lid comes off, cause and effect, inventory. But the big aspect is that Mercury will come up and sextile Pluto. We take another deep dive in what we are purging, what we are cleansing, what's being death, what's death and rebirth. Oh, I've got this camera thing that moves with me now. Zoom's updated. And then the moon will square Vesta as well, our inner flame. And then the moon will come up and will sextile Pallas Athena. Will sextile Venus. I'm sorry. So Libra is one of Venus signs, fire and air. We are purging, cleansing everything. What am I going to purge and cleanse all year? This is my solar return. And then the moon will try and carry close. So there's not very many major personal aspects on that day. Mercury being sextile Pluto. So all in all, it's another week of massive, massive changes in perception, belief, all those kind of things, based on the information that we're finding out, but also about ourselves, and a lot of letting go of old beliefs. So onto the cards, and then stick around if you want to have a look at my solar return. Why not? Three of Cups. This is, let me stop the share. I am joy. This is celebration. We do actually start the week. And I do invite you to choose joy. Operate from joy, as my friend, oh God. Oh God. I can't remember her name now. Anyway, operate from joy. One of my friends says, and her name's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, God, sorry. This is, choose gratitude, generosity, appreciation, and happiness. This is love warmly wrapped up in all of that. And we can choose that because we then have, as part of the big change that we have coming through, this is the Dark Knight. This is I Am Darkness, is the 9 of Blades. But bear with me. Make my own book out. I want to remind myself of the reverse meaning, because the swords or blades are often not as negative in reverse. It's kind of weird. So this is about finding help. Where did I put the card? Oh, there it is. No, that's 5. Oh, here it is. So I am darkness. So you may be feeling the darkness, but this is about saying, finding help, learning to cope, and facing the shadow and letting it go. So this is about kind of, in fact, I'm going to say what I said to a client yesterday, kind of facing those shadow fears and the darkness that comes up, and kind of either writing them down, talking to them yourself, meditation journey, or finding somebody to talk to about them. So it's so that you can let them go and face them and say, is this true? Or can we just let that go now? Does this have to kind of carry us anymore? Now then, we also pulled the 5 of Blades or Swords. I will go back to the deck book, but this is reconciliation, clear communication, peaceful resolution, and compromise. And I think you're going to find that within yourself. You're going to find some compromise and resolution after kind of the sense of loss and disappointment, probably, that many of us have been experiencing. So the official word for this is I am beaten, but I don't think this is beaten. But this is saying you will feel the sorrow, but you can find support to face it. And you can look at this sorrow and this grief and you can let it go. You can say, no, don't need to do this anymore, right? Okay, so I'm just putting these back over here so I can take a picture. All right, so yet again, we get she of the invisible ally. So I will read it again. You probably know it by now if you've been following all my videos. So she's number 7. At last I figured out how to find these cards, the books. So, she of the invisible ally. She's on a beach, if you can't see her, because they're very shiny, with the ocean. But the whale is in the sky, or 2 whales, actually, 2 whales. Anyway, there are unseen forces guiding you right now. They rarely let themselves be seen, but that doesn't mean they're not there. While it's true you often... While it's true that you often name and number your resources, you often forget about the unseen ones, okay? But they tend to dwell in the higher places and they are available to you always. Energies of wonder and awe, curiosity, hope, petition them. A witch will reach into those energies and swim with them through the cosmos. This is a good time for dreaming and journeying. Take a walk in nature, seek out a credible plant shaman. By the way, I'm going to be honest with you guys and tell you that on the new moon I'm going to do a plant medicine journey with some friends who are trained shamanic practitioners who can help you access the gifts of the green world. Spend some time in the liminal realm with active imagination in the tradition of archetypal psychology, but it's also shamanic journey work. Put yourself in the way of magic. Helpful spirits are ready to guide you, and now is the time to summon them to show themselves. Yeah, that's, wow. So I'm going to get my chart up again and I'm going to show you my solar return. I'm actually going to show you my solar return at the place of birth and where I live, because I have lived here a long time. So let me get return to natal. So first of all, I'm getting it up before we do it. So if we use my natal place of birth, my solar return is actually at 9:22 a.m. in the UK. And it's, by the way, your solar return is often a day before your birthday, because it's just the way the I said 2139, didn't I? Can't remember my own degrees. Look at all this Sagittarius in the 11th and 12th house. But I have a 6-degree Capricorn rising. That's really good for a bit of determination to grow this year. But look at all of this. The Pisces energy is all in my 2nd house, which is associated with self-esteem, resources. Could that be a bigger sign, going back to this card, to tune into my own inner resources? Okay. This is just massive. Uranus is still in my 4th house because that's and I still have Scorpio in the midheaven. But I actually find, I'm just going to stop the share and get the solar return for where I am now. I actually find that a little bit more interesting because I've lived here for a long time. I do not believe in doing the thing of going and traveling to a place for your solar return. That just never resonated for me. But if you've moved a lot, like I have, and you have lived in the current place a long time, this probably resonates even more. I love this one. I have Jupiter right at the top of my chart. Very nurturing, but my angles are all cardinal signs, so initiating, starting. The primary energy of most of this is in my third house, which is communication and writing, and I want to write another book. Ooh, and I'm trying to set my life up so that I actually have time. Okay. Uranus is over there in my 8th house, where I have it natally as well, but this is embodying these inner awakenings to my mind. And look at this Pisces energy. The North Node is in the 5th house, which is creative self-expression. I'm literally, hopefully, going to journey this book, and it's going to kind of download it. So that's the plan. And all of this is in the 6th house of meaningful work and connecting with source to do it. I love my solar return chart. If any of you are astrologers and you feel like telling me what you see, I don't want to interpret my whole chart for myself. I will point out though that Mercury, my natal Mercury is 0 Sag, so I have a Mercury return really as well. My Jupiter is at 15 Sag, so Venus is conjunct my natal Jupiter as well. And Mars, drive, will, energy, is conjunct my natal ascendant. It's a solar return and a half, so watch this space. Anyway, I love you. Sorry this one's so long, or not really, because I wanted to give you lots of detail. I do break the transcript down into a written version on my Substack for free as well, if you want to go and get that. But there's also a transcript to follow along on this. So, bye.